After going through multiple delays and a devastating leak, The Last of Us Part 2 finally released on June 19th, 2020. People were pretty divided on it. Some people love it, while others think it goes too far in trying to teach players a lesson. Some feel it nails the tone Naughty Dog set with the original. Others believe the sequel strays too far from what made The Last of Us so good. Some people judged the 20+ hour long game based on just a few short clips of major spoilers. Regardless of which camp you fall into, you've probably got strong opinions on it. This is a game that was made to argue about. All else aside, one thing people are definitely going to be talking about for a long time is how the game wraps up. Is this The Last of Us, or is it the start of an even bigger story to come? If you've played the game and aren't quite sure what to make of its final chapter, or aren't playing it but just want to know what all the fuss is about, fear not. We're going to hit on all the key parts leading up to the game's final moments, and then explain what we think the ending means. Be warned though, we're going to completely spoil the main plot of The Last of Us Part 2, and if you haven't gotten the memo yet, this is not a story that you want to experience secondhand. With that said, let's break down what it really all means. Not long into The Last of Us Part 2, the game throws its first curveball. Many believe that Ellie's latest outing would have her either rescuing or perhaps avenging her romantic interest, Dina. This isn't the case at all. Instead, she's avenging Joel. Early on in the game, Joel and his brother Tommy are out in patrol in Jackson, Wyoming. The two help a girl named Abby escape some infected, and Abby offers to take them back to the lodge she and her group are staying in. All seems well as everyone meets. When Joel and Tommy give their names, however, the mood in the room changes.
Don't act like you heard of us or something.
Because they have.
It's an abrupt shift in tone, which only gets worse when Abby begins to beat Joel with a golf club. Meanwhile, Ellie and Dina are told that Joel and Tommy haven't reported to their next checkpoint. They split up and go out looking for the two, and Ellie stumbles upon Abby's lodge. She rushes in to try and help, but is disarmed and held down as her father figure, Joel, receives one last fatal blow from Abby's golf club. Just like that, the main character of The Last of Us is gone, and so the story begins. From here, you likely have some sense of where the tale might lead. Abby and her group left Ellie and Tommy alive, so naturally the two talk about tracking Abby down and getting revenge for what happened to Joel. Some in Abby's group wore patches from the Washington Liberation Front, and Ellie wants to leave the next morning and head to Seattle. Tommy asks her to wait just one more day. Ellie agrees, only to discover the next day that Tommy left without her, presumably to keep her out of danger, but there's no stopping Ellie.
I prefer that you stay, but I know you better. You going with her? Yeah.
With that, Ellie and Dina head to Seattle to find Tommy and, more importantly, to track down Abby. Ellie's time in Seattle is riveting. She creeps through abandoned buildings, takes out tons of infected, and discovers Dina is pregnant. She's joined for some of her outings by Jesse, Dina's ex, and likely the father of Dina's unborn child. She manages to kill almost everyone who was in the room when Joel died. She even manages to find Tommy. The person she can't find, though, is Abby. Not that it matters, because Abby finds her. And that's when The Last of Us Part 2 flips the script. The Last of Us Part 2 then hands the story to Abby. Time does a little rewind, and suddenly players are seeing things from Abby's perspective. And wow, does that other perspective help paint a very different picture of what's happening in the game. Players learn that Abby's father was a Firefly surgeon who would have operated on Ellie in The Last of Us. The two were close, and it's made clear through cutscenes that Abby cared very much about her dad. On top of that, it's shown he wrestled with the decision to take Ellie's life in exchange for a cure. He wasn't a monster, but ultimately came to the conclusion that it needed to happen for the greater good.
I'm aware of the situation.
And you're okay with killing her?
No, I'm okay with developing a vaccine that'll help save millions of lives.
Unfortunately, he was killed when Joel stormed the hospital in the first game to save Ellie. Since that time, Abby has been training and preparing to exact her revenge on Joel. When she got the chance, she did. Abby's portion of The Last of Us Part 2 does more than just fill in some backstory. It also gives players a closer look at Abby herself. Abby isn't the militaristic villain she's made out to be in the first half of the game. She isn't bloodthirsty by any stretch. She doesn't go around torturing and killing everyone she meets. In fact, she's a pretty typical girl. Abby has a favorite dog at the kennel, she has a complicated relationship with her ex-boyfriend, she has a crew of close friends, and she cares about other people. In fact, when she goes to check on one friend who's gone missing, she's captured by another faction in the game, the Seraphites, and is nearly executed. She's rescued by two Seraphite outcasts named Yara and Lev, however, and decides to take the two under her wing and protect them, even if it means turning on the WLF. The game goes to great lengths to show players that Abby's motivations aren't black and white. In fact, when you take her entire story into perspective and you force yourself to choose a hero and a villain for the larger narrative, Abby might surprisingly be the hero. Needless to say, this is not what many people were expecting. If there was ever a day from hell, Abby has just lived it. She helped nurse an injured Yara back to health, then watched her get gunned down by the WLF. She barely managed to save Lev from the middle of an all-out war between the WLF and the Seraphites, and then she found her ex-boyfriend dead, killed by Ellie. You can understand why Abby wasn't going to let this slide. Abby uses a map left behind by Ellie to trace her back to the theater that she, Dina, Tommy, and Jesse are in. Abby breaks in, pulls a gun on Tommy, and has him captive when Ellie and Jesse burst through the door. Tommy tries to make a play for Abby, causing her to shoot him. From there, the player controls Abby as an angry Ellie stalks around in the shadows with a shotgun. All of a sudden, Ellie is the villain. The two scrap once more, and despite an effort by Dina to save the day, Abby ends up in a position to kill both. Once again, however, Abby spares Ellie's life.
Don't ever let me see you again.
Time passes, and The Last of Us Part 2 shows us that Ellie and Dina have returned to Wyoming. Dina gave birth to her baby, and the three now share a farmhouse. Everything seems peaceful, and the game allows players to believe that everyone will get some kind of happy ending. That's not to say Ellie isn't still affected by everything that happened, however. She clearly has some kind of post-traumatic stress issue that takes hold now and again, and only when Dina comes to help can she pull herself out of it. Ellie also can't seem to let go of revenge. When Tommy comes and visits the farmhouse, yes, he survived again, he brings word of where Abby and Lev might be, claiming he may have tracked them to Santa Barbara, California. Dina wants to let the entire situation go and move on, and for a time, Ellie agrees with Dina. The two now have a baby after all, they're a family. But it turns out that Ellie can't leave the past behind. If Abby is still out there, in Ellie's eyes, she's getting away with it. In the middle of the night, Ellie proceeds to pack her things, only to be discovered by Dina. Though Dina does her best to convince Ellie to stay, it's not enough. Ellie chooses revenge over happiness, knowing that walking out the door means she likely won't have a family when she returns.
I'm not gonna do this again.
That's up to you.
Ellie eventually makes it to Santa Barbara, where she learns that Abby and Lev have been captured. Ellie tracks their location to a beach, where both have been strung up and left to die. For a few moments, it seems like Ellie might let go of her grudge and allow the two to leave, but then...
I can't let you leave.
Ellie forces Abby to fight her, threatening to kill Lev if Abby doesn't comply. So the two go at it one more time. Abby and Ellie battle back and forth for quite a while, both weak and tired. At one point in the fight, Abby bites off two of Ellie's fingers. Ellie, however, manages to get the upper hand and is in a position to drown Abby. Then she has a memory of Joel playing his guitar on his porch and finally decides to let Abby live. Having let go of her need for vengeance, Ellie returns to the farmhouse in Wyoming to find it empty. Gone are Dina and the baby and all of their things. All that remains is what belongs to Ellie, including the guitar Joel gave her. There is a song that appears time and time again in The Last of Us Part 2, Future Days by Pearl Jam. It's the song Joel plays when he first gives Ellie her guitar. And it's also the song Ellie plays when she has a disagreement with Dina at the theater in Seattle. It starts with, "If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself." And it seems to take on different meanings depending on who is playing it and when. For Joel, it may have been an admission about how much he cared for Ellie. For Ellie in the theater, it likely represents the same, how Ellie felt about Dina. In the farmhouse, Ellie tries to play this song once more on her guitar, but she's unable to. Her two missing fingers make it impossible for her to play the chords. It's here that the song makes it past the "If I ever were to lose you" part, and finally hits "I'd surely lose myself." Ellie lost herself in her quest to avenge Joel, and lost everything important to her. The final scene in the game is a flashback to the night before Joel was killed. It takes place on Joel's porch as he and Ellie talk. By this time, Ellie is well aware that Joel had saved her in The Last of Us at the cost of a cure for the rest of the world. She hates him for it, and she feels dying in the hospital would have given her life meaning. But that night on Joel's porch, Ellie tells him, with some of the last words she ever gets to speak to him,
I don't think I can ever forgive you for that. But I would like to try.
The game then returns to the farmhouse, where Ellie leaves her guitar behind and walks away. Where she is going is certainly up for debate, and there will undoubtedly be many discussions about this topic as time goes on. But based on what she said to Joel, one could make the argument that Ellie is off to find Dina. If Ellie was willing to forgive Joel, perhaps Dina will be willing to forgive Ellie. Either way, she's finally letting go of the past. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more SVG videos about your favorite games are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.